Before we get started with the main subject of today's video, a bit of breaking news for Falcons fans that could be construed as kind of concerning. At the time of this recording, offensive tackle Kaleb McGary, right tackle, has been carted off the practice field. According to all different Atlanta Falcons beat reporters, they were too far away to actually get a clear indication of what happened, but he was carted off the field, and Elijah Wilkinson took his place. So as this story develops, we will definitely have more information for you. And then I also think it should be noted that earlier this morning, before this injury took place, Raheem Morris said that he felt really good about the depth of their offensive line. And I just want to know, am I watching a different game than Raheem Morris? Because from what I saw last week, it was not very good. In fact, this was probably a big concern for the Falcons, is that backup offensive line. You can't afford any more injuries to your starters because the starting offensive line is really good. However, the backups right now are not showing quite what they need to do in order to be considered competent, at least in my opinion. Now let's get on to the main subject of today's video. There is some good news, believe it or not, in today's video. Albert Breer visited Atlanta Falcons training camp a couple of days ago, and then he gave his full report on one of the quarterbacks for the Falcons, Mr. QB1, and he gives a very interesting quarterback comparison to Michael Penix Jr. And I'm going to tell you who that is coming up here in just a second. But before we do, at least let me ask you this question. Let's just throw it out there right now. Straight out of the gate, how many touchdown passes do you think Michael Penix will throw in 2025? I want to say somewhere between 22 and 29. 26, 27, you let me know down in the comment section down below. So let's talk about what Albert Breer said about Michael Penix Jr. in his report, because by all indicators, he was very impressed with number 9. The level of confidence that I saw in Michael Penix in Atlanta when I was at their camp last week is worth noting. There are a lot of Rams people on that staff. Obviously, Raheem Morris came from the Sean McVay tree. And you hear the Matthew Stafford comparisons, and the way that he spins the ball, and the way that he sees the field, the way they talk about this kid and his ability, again, to see how fast he processes everything on the field is very similar to what Matthew Stafford is doing right now in Los Angeles. Now, I have a couple of things to say about this because I see where they're going with this comparison, right? I'm not going to dive too much into let's go over every little detail about Matthew Stafford and Michael Penix. No, but I do see what they're trying to go for here. But I have my own thoughts on their plays stylistically. Let's talk a little bit about Stafford, though, for a second, because that's the reason that you're clicking into this, is because there is a comparison on Matthew Stafford and Michael Penix. The former number 1 overall pick in 2009 by the Lions. He has 59,000, almost 60,000 career passing yards, which is 10th all-time and currently 10th all-time in passing touchdowns at 377. I think this is interesting to note, by the way, that the person in 9th, Matty Ice, with 381, Mr. Matt Ryan coming in right now at 9th. So if he stays healthy, Matthew Stafford being, he's most likely going to pass Matt Ryan for not only, I don't know if he's beating him in yards, but definitely in touchdowns. All he needs is 4 to tie, 5 to beat it. So let's go back to the comparison for a second. Sorry to go on a tangent there for a little bit, but Michael Penix Jr. certainly throws a beautiful football like Matthew Stafford does, but I don't know if they're the exact same quarterback. One big difference being MPJ's a lefty, so it's kind of hard to go side by side. I mean, you could mirror the image and then look at their mechanics and everything, but Matthew Stafford has always had sort of this weird arm angle where he kind of throws sidearm. He's an unbelievable arm talent. Talking about Matthew Stafford. And Michael Penix is a very good quarterback inside of the pocket, but he doesn't have the arm angle and the arm talent, in my opinion, that Matthew Stafford offers. In fact, I think more known comparisons that people have compared MPJ to is Jared Goff and Tua. I think he's better than Tua. I think he offers a little bit more athleticism. He ran a 4.46. And Jared Goff's a little too immobile to be considered like a Michael Penix Jr. But if you took the accuracy from Tua and you took the pocket awareness from a guy like Jared Goff, I think you could kind of mold a quarterback, and that would be Michael Penix Jr., which by all accounts would be a very, very good starting quarterback. So what's the scouting report look like right now for MPJ? Well, he throws with excellent anticipation and timing. I went back and I watched the film. His ability after he gets into his drop and then climbing the pocket, it's like 1, 2, 3, rhythm, go. So he's clearly seeing the field well, and that anticipation is part of that really good progression that you like to see from him, even in that limited sample size. His ball location at times was pinpoint, meaning that's not an accuracy thing. It is, but it isn't. His ball location on a bunch of different throws, especially to Drake London, was outstanding. Throwing the ball where the receiver can catch it outside of the defender trying to get a hand on it. So having the ability to hit both the chest, the outside part, throw in rhythm, throw in timing, that's what I mean by pinpoint ball location. And he has masterful pocket awareness. So while he might not make a lot happen outside of the pocket and might not be known as a mobile quarterback, he can manipulate the pocket, slide up, slide right, slide left in order to evade pressure. This is something that Russell Wilson was really known for during his time in Seattle. I think Michael Penix showed a little bit of that last year as well, and something that I'm looking forward to in 2025. The overarching takeaway, though, on MPJ is that he just needs more reps. That's it. We just haven't seen him enough. He's got to be able to get into the flow of the NFL. And in his first full season of starting here in 2025, that's going to be the ultimate indicator of what kind of quarterback he ends up becoming. Because you can't take a 3.5 game sample size and say, here's what we know about Michael Penix Jr., that's who he is. No, he needs a full season of starts. In fact, he probably needs about 25 to 27 starts in order to get a full idea of just who he is as QB1. Which leads me into my next question. Do you think Michael Penix Jr. is going to have a breakout season this season? Yes or no? When I say breakout, I don't necessarily mean he's going to go out and win MVP, but does he show the ability to be this team's franchise quarterback? And I say yes. Obviously, though, let me know in the comment section down below. Now we're going to get on to what Raheem Morris said before this practice that they are currently in right now. We're going to give you some updates later on today about what currently went on at practice, including that update to Caleb McGarry. But before we do that, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the sponsor of today's episode. And let me tell you, my friends, right now, Prize Picks has a lot of cool stuff going on. Preseason football is underway, and college football starts this weekend. Week 0 is here. So don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. It is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long with Prize Picks. It's very simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players on their stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. It is also the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. All you have to do is go to your app store, click the download button, and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, so the non-participants so far. James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker, your two first-round picks. That's a mouthful to say, but I got through it. They're not practicing today. Jalen Walker, a little bit more precautionary measures on that groin injury, and it looks like James Pierce Jr. is just going to be simply a rest. Here's what we also know. Both of these guys are not going to be playing in the game against the Dallas Cowboys. That's what we know. Raheem Morris came out and said, we're not going to play Jalen. We're not going to play James Pierce Jr. We need them for week 1 against the Bucs. Again, I'm okay with that because we did get to see James Pierce Jr. in a lot of action. And Jalen Walker, obviously, you want to make sure that that groin is not going to be an issue. We have talked ad nauseum so far over this week about the not playing your starters, and Raheem Morris being one of the only coaches that hasn't really played any of his starters so far throughout the 2025 preseason. Here's what I also want you to know. During practice, or before practice today, he talked about Billy Bowman. And he said he's definitely formed a role where he's going to play for us regardless. Now, to you, that might sound like, well, he's going to carve himself out like a backup role or maybe a starting role at some point. Here's where I think that message comes from. I think they're sending one to D. Alford, and I think they're saying your job's in jeopardy. Maybe not week one, but if today was any indication that Billy Bowman is getting this kind of praise from Raheem Morris, and the fact that Natrone Brooks is taking snaps at the slot corner position today during practice, leads me to believe that they aren't trusting D. Alford at all right now. The leash is very, very short. So, and with the additions that the Falcons have made at the cornerback position, I think they're expecting a whole lot more from him this year. Last year, they wanted them to perform well, but now I really think that this coaching staff is saying, we've got talented corners. We cannot afford to be as bad as we were last year. There's just no room for it. And they also have a new plan for A.J. Terrell, and I think this is kind of the expectations factor. They want Terrell to play a little bit more zone coverage, whereas last year and the years prior, Terrell was primarily known for being a man-on-man coverage corner going up against the team's number one. That's a tough thing to do week in and week out. So now, playing a more zone coverage scheme and taking that pressure off him, they're kind of relying on the other corners to be able to keep the game in front of them as well. So not necessarily every single play is A.J. Terrell going to be going up against the number one. Sometimes you might have to have a nickel corner slide up on the number one. In any case, this is indicative of the Falcons coaching staff saying the pressure now is on to perform. We're not worried about the Falcons offense. How can this defense hold up? And speaking of the defense, I know a lot of people were in the comment section down below yesterday of our cut candidates video. And they were talking about Troy Anderson and how he can never stay healthy, and they want him cut. And Raheem Morris basically gave an update this morning and said, I don't want to rule him out for week one, but I also don't want to lead you on that it'll be a week one thing. Can you just give us a clear answer? Just say he's not going to be ready or he is going to be ready. I mean, yeah, I feel good about where he's at, but I don't want to lead you on. That's clear to me that he's not going to be ready for week one. And the injuries, look, they are what they are. Currently, he's on the PUP list. So in order to start week one, believe it or not, he has to be lifted from the PUP list in order to be considered active. Otherwise, he can't play week one against the Bucs. But in 2023, he had that torn pec, and then, of course, in July, he had that knee injury. It's all a bunch of up-in-the-air stuff right now. Raheem Morris clearly doesn't want to give full, definitive, black-and-white answers right now. He wants to kind of keep it up in the air and have that cloudy, I don't know yet. I don't want to give you one way or the other sort of. It's kind of like just sitting in the middle of the fence and not leaning one way or to the other. It's kind of annoying, in my opinion. The non-participants of today's practice so far, as we know it, are Darnell Mooney, Kadero Hodge, Clark Phillips, Carlos Washington, Troy Anderson, Storm Norton, Taquan Graham, and, of course, Malik Verdon. So, with all of the injuries that are going on, including the most recent one that we know from Caleb McGarry, which, again, we'll try to keep you updated on as we get more information, what's your concern level on the Falcons' injuries? I'm going to say it's like a 6 or a 7 right now. I feel like there's a lot of injuries, maybe not detrimental to the entirety of the season, but after hearing about Caleb McGarry, I just feel like the injury bug has clearly made its way throughout Falcons practice. And that's something that I hope gets cleared up by the time that week one rolls around, that we're about as healthy as we can fully be. Before we end today's episode, I want to remind you to join the Falcons Today family. We are well on our way to 38,000 subscribers, which would be an unbelievable milestone here. So if you haven't done so already and you want free Falcons content all season long, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Remember to like the video as well. It helps grow the channel. My name is Moose. As always, rise up and be cool.